I started the recording. So I just posted a link called Collab Edit. Of course, I just Googled for it and got it. I don't know how good it is. But the idea is that you can name yourself whatever you want and you can just type your questions there so that I can see. So if you're shy, you can just name some random name and then just type your questions there. So I'll try to see this time from time to time, and if there are any questions, I'll try to answer. Okay. So, is there anything that you want to discuss before we start the class? Yeah, don't delete anything. I think some guys are deleting it. Don't delete anything. Um, just type. Can somebody type something there? Let's see. It shows up. Okay. So anyway, we'll figure it out as we go ahead. Okay. Are there any questions? Should we start? Okay. We are short of people. I don't know. Like, please try to be on time if you're planning to attend the class, or just don't attend the class, right? So, or else because you will miss, and then there's no point in repeating again and again. Please ask your friends to be on time because we are limited by 50 minutes. I can't go beyond that. And if they start 10 minutes late, then it's of no use, right? So try to be on time. So I will, from next class onwards, I'll take the attendance in the first 5 minutes. So if you're absent, you're absent. You can't give me any more reasons, right? Okay, so we were discussing this problem. So I have just written it down so that it's easier for you to follow. Um, Maybe I think today we will wait for 5 more minutes, but from uh, please let me know. So there's a lot of you, like at least few people said that they didn't understand what we are trying to do here. So there is this guy, and here there are these boxes which he can access directly, and there is this infinite number of boxes or huge number of, I mean, huge amount of boxes here, and he can access it through this girl, right? And my challenge is to have I have some values stored here, some XYZ value stored here, and I want to add 30 such numbers and store it in some location here in this. Right? So my goal is to add all the 30 numbers here and store the summation of those numbers in some of one of these boxes. Let's say 011. And how do I instruct this guy? I can instruct this guy using binary digits. So it can either be 0 or 1. He cannot understand anything else. So I represent my commands using bits. So I say add is represented using 000, subtract is represented using 001, multiply is using 010, and so on and so forth. Right? Okay, somebody signed in. Okay. And division with 011, load with 100, store with 101, and so on and so forth. So now how does this add work? Let's say I write add 000 and 001 and 000. Then whatever is there in 00 and whatever is there in 001, both will be added and kept in 000. Right? So this is how we defined add to work. Similarly, we had initially said that load will work something like this. I will write load something like this. So I say load from 000 to say 010, which means that whatever is there in the memory, which means that I'm talking about this particular element, whatever is there here will be loaded into 010. So this is what we initially had the load, but we quickly figured out that having that hard coded, having the 000 hard coded is an issue. So what we said was we have something called indirect addressing mode, where we said this load is something like this. I have a load where I specify the source and the destination, but the source is no longer this memory address, but it is one more small tiny box here where we want to call it as registers. Let's call it as registers. Uh, so I specify a register here and a register here. So why have I put this in bracket? The reason is that I am not directly copying whatever is there in the source to destination, but this bracket will dereference. You can think of it as a pointer. So I go to 001, whatever is there in 001, it will be act as an address, and finally that address will be copied from here to here. So let's say I write this command, right? Let's say I write load and this source and this 010. Then it means that whatever is there in 001, let's say 001 had all zeros. Then whatever is there in all zeros will be copied to 010. Is this clear? Is this till now clear? The first thing is how this command instruction set works, or command line work, commands work. And the next is I had a load which was absolute, which means that I had hard coded what is the memory address here. But now I have something like indirect addressing mode, where I specify the source register, whatever is there in the source register. Let's say 001 had source 000, which is this memory address. From there, I will fetch 010. Is this clear till now? If anybody has any doubt till now, please feel free to ask me, or else we'll go to the next step.
Clear, sir.
Okay. So next we'll go. Yeah, I think some people will get bored because we keep repeating the same time. But as I said, the basics take some time to sink in. But we'll go faster as we go ahead for other things. Okay. So instead of calling this 000, 000, 001, 1010, I will try to just name them like what we have named, right? This guy doesn't know that this is actually you are calling it as add. You are just calling it add. You could have called adder. You could have called summation or whatever, right? So it's just that the name we had given for 00 is add. Similarly, we will try to give a name for these tiny boxes. We can say that 000 is R1, 001 is R2, 010 is R3, 01. So because we have agreed that we will call this as register. So this is register 1, register 2, register 3, register 4, and register 5. So there are 5 registers. It's just that it is 000, but we have, for our own easier understanding, we have named it as R1, R2, R3, R4. And this memory is there. Of course, we don't name this as M1, M2, M3, M4, M5 because there's just huge number of such boxes. This is just huge number of boxes. So I don't name it as M1, M2, M3, M4, M5. I just keep it as whatever the digits are. But only these boxes, I name it as R1, R2, R3. And so we'll come back to our problem statement. The problem statement was to add 30 numbers here and store it in one of the boxes here. So from now on, when I say a box here, I want to store something not in 011. I actually mean that I want to store it in R4. I'm referring to the same thing. But now from now on, I'll say I add all these elements, whatever 30 elements here, and store it in R4. So I have set of instructions, and now instead of giving this person one instruction of the other, I will give this entire program to him and say execute it. Right. So instead of one instruction after the other. So what is the first instruction in that program that I give? I say load bracket R1 with R2. And why do I have bracket? To represent that it is indirect addressing mode, which means that he has. And before starting, I agree that I just assume that R1 has all zeros, R3 has 1, and R5 has 30. Somebody has initialized it for you. Let's see how we'll initialize later. But somebody has initialized R1 with all zeros, 4 zeros, R3 has 1, and R5 has 0. So then I write load R bracket R1, R2, which means that this will be now translated to his language, which is 100, because I have agreed that load means it's 100. 100 bracket 000, because R1 I have agreed that it is 00, and R2 I have agreed it as 001. Now this again will be converted when he is passing on this information to this girl, which means that whatever is there in 00, what is there in 000, it is 4 zeros. So this is the final command that will go to this girl. Of course, it's not exactly this way, but let's assume that it is this way. So now whatever is there in this will be stored in 001. So whatever is there in this will be stored in R2. Now I have whatever was there in this in R2. Now I add R2 and R4, which means that let's say this R4 started with 0. So I do R2 plus R4 and store it back in, store it back in R4. So
Sir, should we also initialize R4, right?
Yeah, I mean, we should have typically initialized R4. Let's assume that R4 is initialized to 0. So now I add this, which means that I add whatever I copied into R2 and store it back in R4. And now again, I add R1 with R3, which means that this R1 will become 001, which means that it will start pointing to this particular memory location and no longer to this memory location. And then I subtract R5 with R3, which means that this R5 will become 29. And since the resultant is not 0, the 0 bit is not set. It will be set only if the resultant is 0. So the 0 bit is not set. So I am saying jump not 0 I1. If this bit is confusing, just think whether this previous instruction resulted in a 0 or not. If it resulted in a 0, it will not jump. If it is not 0, then it will jump. Right? So since this is still not 0, which means that the counter is not has become 0, I will jump to I1, and then this will continue. It's just that only thing that will change here is this. It will, instead of this being translated to 4 zeros, it will be translated to what in the second iteration?
Sir, can you
Zero,
explain
zero, one.
I5 again?
So we are, did you guys understand how the first iteration happened from I1 to I5?
I didn't understand I5.
Oh, you didn't understand I5. Okay. So did you understand till here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So once I subtract R5 and R3, I get some result and I store it in R5. So what was the value? The value R5 was 30 and R3 was 1. So I do 30 minus 1, I get 29. So this is the result which I'm storing back in R5. Okay. So I'm storing back 29 in R5. But I also see what is the result. So if the result is 0, then this particular 0th bit, it's just a single bit, will be set as 1. Now, will the 0 bit be 1 or 0 based on this result? Do you think the 0 bit will be 1 or 0?
0.
0, right? 0 bit is 0. Okay. This jump not 0 will jump as long as the 0 bit is 0. It will not jump because this is NZ, right? So it will not jump.
Okay.
It will not jump if the 0 bit is 1. Right. So now the 0 bit is 0.
No. How does it know what is the 0?
So this instruction has, so you are giving this instruction to this guy. So this guy not only so how, like when you gave this instruction to this guy, what did this guy read? This guy read R5 and R3, correct? And then he wrote it back in R5. Do you agree?
Yeah.
So similarly, when you gave this instruction, he will look at the 0th bit.
Okay,
So
okay, I get it.
it's not the instruction that knows about it, it's that this guy, because finally you are passing this instruction to this guy, right? So he will
Okay,
look
sir,
at the
I
0
get it.
bit. Yeah, if he look at the 0 bit, since the 0 bit is 0, he will go to I1. Is this okay?
Yes, sir. Fine.
So now I go here. The same instruction will get executed, but what I'm saying is instead of this 4 zeros, this instruction will be what? No. After the completion of first iteration.
0001.
Yeah, 0001, right? So why did it happen? Like, okay, let's write it. Why is that happening? Right? So after this instruction, what is in R2? R2 has whatever was there in this. Let's say it had X. So now R2 has X. And after this, what does R4 have? R4 has X. After this instruction, what does R1 have? 001. And after this instruction, what does R5 have? 29. After this instruction, and also not just 29, 0 bit will be 0. Right. After this, I go back to I1. So when I load what is there in R1. All right. So what is there in R1 now? It is not 4 zeros, but what is there in R1? It is 0, 0. So I load the next value. Maybe the next value is Y. So I load the value Y to this place, and I will add Y plus Z. So Y plus X, because now R4 is X. So I'll add Y plus X and store it back in R4. So after the second iteration, R4 will have X plus Y. Is this okay? Okay, I'll just launch the poll. If you have not understood, please either you will have to speak out what you haven't understood, because we can't keep repeating it again and again. I think people will get really.
Sir?
Mhm.
So I understood this. I was wondering why we decided on this 0-bit design. Wouldn't it also make sense to pass a register as an argument or something? Like, is there any particular reason there is a 0-bit and this guy knows?
Which one? This one. This jump not zero.
No, the design of having a 0-bit in the house.
Okay. Why can't I have command called CMP? Right. That's what you're asking indirectly. Am I right?
Or just passing like here along with the jump not zero, we can pass a register as an argument and say check whether the
Yeah,
value.
but okay. Let's think about it as a designer, right? I want to think about it as a designer. Of course, there are such comments. I'm not totally ruling it out. But how many bits are you checking for this? You're just checking one bit, right? At any given point of time.
Yes, yes.
So why should I make use of a register? Like if I didn't have this instruction, then I should have I should have made use of this register R3, and the comparison would have become the width of this R3, right? Let's say the R3 has 32 bits. Then I have to check the entire 32 bits, right? So I'm acting on a register, which is much more expensive than acting on a single bit.
Okay, so I thought it would give us more flexibility and we could.
Yeah, there are commands which use that
Design it.
flexibility, but
Mhm.
this is a very simple design that we are working on. We'll build on it as we go ahead. We'll actually introduce one more instruction called CMP later in the class progresses. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. So now coming back to this question, so now we have understood how we put it in an iteration loop, everything. But the problem is, how does this guy know that he's in the he? How does he know, he or she, or he knows? I have to go back to this particular instruction, right? Do I name number these instructions, and how does he know where is this instruction? Like, how do you want to do this now?
We are also storing the program within the memory, right?
Yes, excellent.
So
Yes,
yeah, so that particular instruction is also stored in some particular memory location.
excellent.
So
Okay.
so we are just referencing that memory location.
Yeah. What's your name? Just to Sagar.
Sagar.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. So what Sagar says is that actually very interesting thing. He says this itself is like, what is this? This is itself binary bits, right? So this is one instruction. This is second instruction. So so he thinks that somewhere in the memory or somewhere here, maybe not. I have not drawn the picture here, or maybe somewhere in the memory, these instructions are stored one after the other. Does everybody agree to that, or does somebody have some other thoughts on that? So I have to store this memory somewhere, right? So this instruction is some set of bits. This instruction is some set of bits. This instruction is some set of bits. So I have to store I1 followed by I2 followed by I3 followed by I4. When I say I1, I'm talking to the bits. So in some boxes, similar to such where I store the data, similarly, I have to store these instructions in some of these boxes. So let's assume that everybody agrees. Okay. So now I want to say I want to go to I1, then I can just specify that memory address. That's what I think Sagar tries to say. Is everybody okay with the design?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
actually, yeah, in a way it works, but there is small caveat. We'll add that and then figure out why that might be useful. I'll say I'll add one more box, and that box I'll try to call it as program counter. Or PC. So what is this program counter doing? So whenever this guy picks up an instruction, let's say he picks up I1, he will just increment this so it will start with 0, but then it will become 1. And then when he's executing this instruction, he'll say that I'm executing the second instruction. When this is getting executed, he'll say third instruction. When he'll say it's fourth instruction. And when this one is executing, he'll say fifth instruction. Is the design clear? Like I'm just keeping a count of the instruction that I'm executing. So when this PC is 5, I am 100% sure that he's executing this instruction. When the PC value is 4, I am 100% sure that he is executing this instruction. Okay. Now, now one of the very beautiful thing happens. So what he does is he will just let's say this entire program of I1, I2, I3, I4 is stored in the memory. Let's say it is stored in this memory. Okay, maybe should I write? Okay, I think I'll write it. So he is this guy who has no. Okay, I will not no longer name these boxes and not the registers, but I am more concerned about this program counter that is here, and there is this memory, and we are not even worried about the other boxes. But let's say in some of the boxes, somewhere in the memory, we are not worried about where in the memory, but somewhere in the memory, there are these boxes which have actually stored I1, I2, I3. Okay. So this is the actual program that he has to execute. So what he does is he will just increment the program counter. He says I want to execute the first instruction. Let's say he says I want to execute the first instruction. Okay. Then this girl will read the PC value and fetch this instruction 1 and give it to him. Initially, what were you doing? You were giving him one instruction after the other, right? You are saying sit, you are saying sleep, you are saying eat, you are saying watch a TV, watch the TV or whatever, right? But now you have given the entire set of instructions as a program and stored this in this memory, because I know that there are so many such boxes, there are too many such boxes here, right? So I am not limited by the capacity here. So I have huge number of boxes here. So I just store that entire program in this memory and I will start the system. So once the system starts, of course, this exactly doesn't happen this way. There are many other caveats to it, but let's assume that this is how it happens. So he will increment the program counter, and this girl will just see, okay, this guy has incremented the program counter and the value is 1, and she will figure out, she will figure out that the first value of the program is somewhere stored in this particular box, and she will go and fetch that I1 and give it to this guy, and this guy will start executing. And once he finishes the instruction 1, what will he do?
Increment the PC.
Yeah, increment the PC, right? He'll just increment. He'll just increment the PC. So he'll say, okay, I want to increment the PC now. So I will put 2 here. And the moment he puts 2 here, what does this girl do? This girl will go and fetch this instruction 2 and give it to him. And he says, okay, now execute the instruction 2. Is this design okay now, or do you think that I'm just making up things and pulling your leg on a Friday morning?
It makes sense.
It makes sense, right? So, I mean, you can understand the beauty of it, right? Like, now you don't even have to ask him, give one instruction after the other. You can just give him a set of instructions, put it in memory, switch the computer on, and just go and have coffee, right? So the girl will start giving him instructions by reading this one after the other. Right. And I don't even have to specify this I1. Okay. Now I don't have to specify this as I1. I can specify this as something else. What can I specify? Who wants to give a shot
You
at
can
this?
change the program counter.
No. I want to jump not 0 to some value. See, I have to
Just
give
like a number like +1.
memory of it.
See, this is the program that I am giving to this system, right? So instead of writing I1 here, see here I wrote R5. Instead of writing I1, what can I write?
You can give it a number, how many lines to jump forward or backward.
Yeah, you just write 4 here instead of, do you just write 4 here instead of I1?
We can write 1 and it will change the value of PC, and then
yeah. So what will you write it as? Will you write it as
-4.
just 4? Yeah, PC minus 4, right? Excellent. So I just write it as what? PC minus
-4.
Yes, this is what I write. Actually, I write this. So I just write PC minus 4. So what happens when the instruction 5 executes, and if it has to jump, then it will jump to PC minus 4, which means that this guy, let's say he came till here and the value of this PC is 5, right? Let's say the value of this PC is 5, and this condition became true, which means that he has to actually jump. Then what will he do? Instead of incrementing the PC to 6, what will he do? He'll do 5 minus 4, and that will become 1, and he'll just keep quiet after doing this. Now this girl says after 5, he will not go and question, why did you make, instead of I was expecting 6, why did you do it 5? She will not question it. She will just go and fetch what instruction again? She will fetch again this instruction.
Is it the reason that we cannot detect an infinite loop?
Why do you think so?
I read somewhere that we cannot detect an infinite loop or
No, is it because, I mean, so there are two things that you are talking about. Okay.
like the girl don't question that why you jump to 1. Like she just do what she does.
Yes. Yeah,
So
but okay. I understood your question. So there are two things that you are asking. So one is you are attending Dr. Raja's class, right? So there is this thing, I don't know. Classes have started, right? TOC has classes have started?
yes, sir, but
Okay.
till now we haven't reached there.
Okay. Yeah, it will take some time to reach there. So there is a huge difference between TOC and algorithms and computer organization. In TOC, what you are trying to think about is, can I solve this problem or can I not solve this problem? That's all you are trying to think. On a very, very broad sense, given a problem, can I use this machine to solve this problem? So the first machine that you saw, what was that machine? I think I'm sure 100% sure you would have seen that machine by now.
The finite state machine.
Yeah. So you have, what is this? Okay. Okay. We will take a small detour and try to explain you, because I want you to understand where this computer organization falls. We'll again revisit this later. It's a very good question that you have asked. So let's say this is my universe and there are huge number of problems lying around, and as a human I want to solve all these problems, and as an engineer, if I have to solve these problems, what do I build?
Machines.
Machines, right? So I build the first machine, and that I call it as finite state machine. And you can see that the finite state machine is able to solve some of the problems in the universe, but not all the problems in the universe, right? So then you are not happy. So I will start to increase my power of machine in the TOC term. So I say, okay, I will build one more machine. Which is much more powerful than the finite state machine, which is able to solve some of the problems which the finite state machine was not able to solve. Here, what do I mean by the power? I am saying the power implies that it is able to solve some of the problems which the other machine was not able to solve. I don't know whether you have looked at this second machine or not. If you have not looked at it, it's okay. Then there is one more machine. We'll come back to this again later, even in CO, because I think, and then I built one more machine. Then I'm still not happy. Then I built one big machine. And this machine is called the Turing machine. You might have heard of this word, Alan Turing. So, right, this Turing machine is able to solve many of the problems that the FSM is able to solve. Well, this machine is able to solve, this machine is able to solve, and it is also able to solve some of the problems. But there are still some more problems that are lying in the universe which I am not able to solve. So the understanding of TOC, why you read TOC and why I said TOC is very important, is because to make this distinction, what machine you will build. When I say a Turing machine is powerful when compared to finite state machine, it means that Turing machine is able to solve some of the problems which the finite state machine is not able to solve. Actually, Turing machine is nothing but a computer. But does it mean that Turing machine is always faster than finite state machine? Okay, since you don't know Turing, since you don't know Turing machine, I do not expect the answer. But for your understanding, just understand that Turing machine is not always faster than finite state machine. Maybe a finite state machine is able to solve a problem faster. Maybe this problem, if you take this problem, Turing machine is very slow because it has overhead and things like that. Maybe it is slower, but we still say it is powerful because it is able to solve some of the problems. So in the computer organization class, we are only worried about this particular domain, or maybe this entire domain. We never go beyond this. Like this, we come here and we get stuck here. When a computer organization guy says, I am a systems guy. When a systems guy says, I have built a powerful machine, it means that I built a faster machine or energy efficient machine or things like that. It doesn't mean, let's say I have a computer 1 and computer 2. I said, when I say computer 2 is more powerful than computer 1, it means that computer 2 maybe is running faster than computer 1. Maybe that's what my powerful definition is. But if Dr. Radha comes and says, I have built a machine which is more powerful than a machine 1, then he means that he is able to solve some of the problems that machine 1 is not able to solve. So whether I can detect an infinite loop or not, though the problems looks very easy, it somehow falls in the range somewhere here. And it doesn't fall in this range. And did I answer your question? Or?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's why even though I wasted 5 minutes, I just want you. I know TOC might sound very boring, but please don't neglect TOC because it's like the fundamental, one of the fundamental things. And what is okay? The other thing is you are also learning data structures and algorithms, right? So what is this data structures and algorithms? They are also dealing with somehow this particular domain itself. Maybe they sometimes go here, but not too much farther away. But they go sometimes small here. Of course, Raja works somewhere here. So Ajin sometimes goes here. So when they say I have built a program which is faster than another program, they are talking about complexity. Whether I can solve it in order of n, or of order of n square, or order of n cube. Right. So Ajin is saying if Ajin says quicksort is faster than say selection sort, he says asymptotically it is faster. But when a computer organization guy says, I am able to run selection sort faster, it doesn't mean that he has reduced the complexity. It just means that he has built a system. Somehow it works faster because somehow I have designed in such a way that this guy and the arrangement of this memory is a bit faster. It helps. Okay. If I didn't understand, if you didn't understand, it is fine. We'll keep repeating this again and again in the class so that you will pick it up. Okay. So are you happy this PC thing? Are you happy with this PC thing?
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
one doubt that I have,
Go ahead.
like we are storing some values in these registers, right? So, is there a limit on how much value we can store?
Yeah,
Like,
excellent, right? So he's asking what is the width? Can I store say 10,000, 20,000, 40,000, or can I just store? So it's the number of bits here, right? So that bit is what we say is the architecture. So I can have an 8-bit register, I can have a 32-bit register, I can have a 64-bit register. We will see different kinds of architectures, different kinds of designs, which have different kinds of number of registers, the width of the register changes, things like that. We'll come back to it later, but the width is variable. But once we fix the width, it's not like dynamic programming, right? Like you cannot just shrink or expand the width because you have fabricated this chip. So once you fabricate the chip with the register size 32 bits, you can store only 32 bits. After 32 bits, what happens? It's just overflows.
okay, sir.
Okay. Are there any other questions in this design? I think we have covered most of it. This is how most of the assembly program works. This is how generally system works. Of course, we'll still add more components as we go ahead. But the thing is that now I will introduce something called PC other than the registers, and the girl keeps seeing the PC and she goes and fetches the instruction and gives him to him rather than you doing it again and again and again. Okay, since we are left with around 10 minutes or 15 minutes of time, we'll take a break from this. We'll go and see something else. Before that, I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes to figure out if you have any questions. And please feel free to ask questions. So there's one question that came. I guess I didn't see the chat. Oh, my mic is not working. Oh, Pawan, I think said maybe it's not working. Maybe for the attendance. And somebody said for implementation of PC, we have to give instructions. Yeah, okay. For incrementing of PC, we have to give instructions. Yes. So what is exactly happening is when this jump not zero is seen. So when this add is okay, it's a good question. So he is somebody, I don't know his name, but somebody is asking. You said that I give this instruction and this instruction gets executed. Now, who is actually incrementing the PC? So this guy himself. So you are not giving an extra instruction for him to increment the PC. It says in his DNA that whenever he finishes executing an instruction, he will go and increment the PC. It's like whenever you eat food, you go and wash your hands, right? I don't have to keep telling you that. I don't have to give you an instruction, eat food, wash your hands. I just have to tell you, eat food. Right? So the moment you eat food, if your hand is, if you have eaten with your hand, you'll go and wash your hand, right? So I don't have to give the second instruction to you. So similarly, I don't have to tell him to go and increment the PC. As long as this PC is not a part of the instruction, like in this J and Z, it is part of the instruction, but this is not a part of the instruction for the subtract instruction. So he'll just execute the subtract instruction and increment the PC and keep quiet. And this girl will see the PC value and figure out where this memory starts and relatively and go and fix this. Okay. Are there any other questions?
Sir,
Uh-huh.
sir, the instructions are also stored in memory and the values are also being stored in the memory. So, does it differentiate between them automatically?
No, it doesn't do it automatically, but we'll have to do that ourselves, and we'll see how we'll do that later. So one way to look at it is, okay. Since you asked this question, I will ask you the same question again. So let's say I have this memory, okay, and there are so many such boxes here, right? So I have so many such boxes here, and you have to store both the values and the instructions. If I just go and give this to some person who doesn't know anything, where will he store the values and where will he store the instruction?
Maybe one after other.
One after the other. Okay, that's an interesting answer actually, but it's difficult to. Yeah, it might work, but there's an easier way out, right?
He can allocate some part for the instruction and some part for
Yeah,
the value part.
right. So I can allocate this part for the instructions and this part for storing the values. Yes, I can do that. But okay, since you are asking these questions, I am just continuing with the pulling your leg. Right. So I have these boxes. Okay. So now somebody said somebody said that I will allocate this boxes till here for instructions and this box is for values. Is everybody okay with this design?
Yeah.
No, I am not happy with this design. There's some problem with this design.
Maybe more instructions are needed or something like that.
You are almost going there, but you have to think a bit harder.
Sir, does it like overlap at a point? Like if it's
no, let's
like,
say okay. Let's say it will never overlap. Let's say this demarcation is 100%.
Like we have few instructions only, but we are using a lot of memory.
Okay, let's say this is also for values. Okay, demarcation is here.
Now I cannot increase the program length. Like my program is very strictly bounded.
So what are you indirectly saying is that I can't fix this size a priori.
Yes, sir.
So now how will you do it dynamically then?
As I said earlier, first put the variables size and then the instructions.
Okay, so you want to put the variables on first and then the instructions.
Whatever way, but then like dynamically we can allocate.
No, right? Because
we can keep some memory saying that it goes up from here to here or something.
There's an easier way out of it. I think you have already used this data structure, but you are not able to map this data structure.
So we can keep a kind of register up to where the instructions.
No, you don't even have to do all those things. That is the easiest way out, actually.
Linked list?
No, not linked list. Linked list cannot be, realized in hardware, right? So I cannot have one wire going from here to here.
Array?
No, not array. This is already an array. There's one more data structure that you have seen.
Stack queue.
Yeah, stack, right? So how does stack grow? Stack grows from bottom to top, right? Or top to bottom. So can I use some kind of stack here? So I will start growing the instructions from here and values from here. So if values grow a lot, then it is okay. If the instructions grow a lot, it is okay. Maybe. Okay, I'll leave you with that thought. Okay, so we'll see something else just as a break. Okay. Okay. So please concentrate on your lab assignment also, and this is what we wanted to see. Okay. How many of you seen this before?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Can you tell me where the processor is?
Sir, on the top CPU socket is there.
Excellent. So this is CPU socket is, so this is the processor. Only this much is the processor, right? People will generally think that this is the processor, but the small thing is the processor. Okay. can you tell me where will you put your memory? The RAM?
Sir, in the PCI
DIMM.
socket.
So DIMM DDR2.
Where is the DIMM DDR2? I'm not able to
Above
see.
the CPU socket.
Above the CPU socket.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
these two. So here, what does it mean? I can plug in 2 cards which have memory, right? Okay, excellent. I think you guys know a lot. So can you tell me where the cache is? I keep hearing, right? I have 8 MB cache, 16 MB cache. That's what people advertise on their mobile phones, right? Now, if you buy the Xiaomi mobile, they say it has an 8 MB cache with 4 GB RAM memory. So where is the cache here? So how many of you have not heard that when they advertise, they say that it has 8 MB cache. My system has an 8 MB cache with 8 GB RAM. Have you heard of this or not before?
Yes, sir.
RAM
Yeah.
we have heard, sir.
No,
But
cache
it should
also
be near the CPU, I think.
Okay.
The cache.
Somewhere here, this pin. Okay, let's see. Okay, since we've already come up with, we'll go to Flipkart. I don't know whether it's actually true. I've seen these advertisements, but let's figure it out. Let's say, what is the best mobile that we can think of is, I don't even know any mobiles. Does it have this an advertisement? Okay, this guy, okay, these guys don't give it, but yeah, generally I have seen advertisements where they say about cache, at least in the discussion forums that they have about, but somehow these guys seem to hide it. I'll go here. Oh, they also don't have it.
12 MB cache is given
Oh, where is it?
about this item.
Second point.
Okay, you guys are very sharp with where is it? Okay, yeah, here, right, 12 MB. So generally, even in mobile, it's very famous to actually show it. So where is the cache here?
Sir, it's inside the CPU, I guess.
Yes, it's inside the CPU. So you can't see the cache here. The cache is, so it's a single chip, right? So this chip, if you're seeing, right, inside this chip, there is this cache. So if you say 2 core, it doesn't mean that there are 2 chips. It's just that in this chip itself, there are 2 cores sitting next to each other. So it's in the same die. So I don't know how many of you know how things are fabricated. You take a silicon wafer, the wafer that you eat, right? They take that silicon wafer and fabricate the chip. So the 2 cores, the cache, everything is here.
What about when they say L1 cache, L2 cache? Where does
Everything
that
is, yeah, everything is here. It's just that the cache is divided into multiple levels. Why do you divide cache into multiple levels?
Sir, to mark a trade-off between storage and speed.
So how does speed will increase if I have multiple ways, multiple?
So see, registers have high speed, but like we cannot increase their amount like RAM. So there is a trade-off between speed and storage.
Okay, yeah, you are right, but we'll see why as we go ahead in the class, because we have dedicated almost a month for cache, so we'll see it as we go ahead. Okay. And what do you mean by this North Bridge chipset? This is this huge thing. Do you know what this means? And what do you mean by South Bridge? Okay, that's your homework. You should go and read what does a North Bridge mean to you? What does a South Bridge mean to you? Why do you need a battery? So there's something called CMOS battery here, right? So why do you need a battery? So tomorrow I'll...
Something.
Huh? Sorry?
Is that for maintaining the clock? CMOS battery?
Yes. Yes. But why do you need to maintain the clock?
When the CPU is not powered, it should still run the clock.
Yeah, why? Okay, so that's also one more assignment. So try to think about why you need North Bridge and South Bridge and the battery and things like that.
Sir, what exactly are we seeing here? Is it the motherboard? Or...
Yeah, it's the mother. Okay, I didn't say that. It's a motherboard.
Okay.
Yeah, so which houses this? Okay, so I think we have run out of time. Or yeah, so we have run out of time. Okay, so are there any questions? So I'll stop.